Stop. Before you ask God for another sign, another breakthrough, or another source of power, understand the weapon you are already carrying. The problem may not be that you have too little. The problem may be that what you already have has been divided into pieces. Chosen one. You know these moments. You enter a room and notice tension. Nobody names. You hear someone say they are fine, but something in you knows the words do not match the person. You wake with an answer you could not force the night before. Then, the moment the decision becomes yours, the clarity disappears. That contradiction is the first clue. You can see another person's pattern in seconds, then spend days questioning your own next step. You sense that something is wrong, yet you cannot tell whether it is intuition, fear, memory, or exhaustion. You know what needs to change, but movement still does not come. The weapon you carry is not supernatural control. It is not power over another human being. It is something quieter. It is the ability to remain clear when noise demands a reaction, and to recognize a pattern without becoming trapped inside it. It is also the ability to let intuition and reason work together. When those two stop fighting, your choices become simpler. You do not need 20 confirmations for one decision. Hold 3 things as we go deeper. You will understand why this ability seems to switch on and off. You will learn why sensitivity without discernment can confuse you. Why does your clearest mind disappear when the moment matters most? Think about what happens when you sit down to do something important. Suddenly you remember a message. You want water. You check something that did not need checking. Your body becomes tired at exactly the moment your intention becomes serious. Most people call that laziness. That explanation is too simple. Often, what you are watching is fragmentation. Your attention moves in several directions. At the exact moment integration is required. When this pattern becomes automatic, you begin blaming your identity for what may be a condition you can learn to change. This is the first breakthrough. You are not empty. You may be divided. There is a difference. One belief makes you chase more power. The other makes you protect and restore the clarity already available to you. If this pattern has described your life, mark this moment with 4 words. I choose integrated clarity. Not because saying a phrase changes your life, but naming the shift helps you notice the choice you are about to examine, and awareness is where responsible change begins. There is another trap ahead. It catches sensitive people first. You can feel deeply and still read a signal incorrectly. Sensitivity can be a gift, but without discernment, it can become noise. Before you can trust the weapon, you must understand what it actually is. And before you can understand that, you must see why seeing more does not always mean seeing clearly. Chosen one. The weapon is not what most people imagine when they hear that word. It does not attack. It does not dominate. It does not make you superior. The real weapon is discernment under pressure, the ability to stay present long enough to see what is happening before fear tells you what it means. You may already know the signs. You notice the emotional temperature of a room before anyone speaks. You catch small contradictions in a story. You feel when a conversation is drifting away from what matters. Sometimes an answer appears before you can explain how you reached it, and only later does your reasoning catch up. That sensitivity can be useful. It can also exhaust you. When you notice everything, you can start treating everything as important. A change in tone becomes a warning. A delayed reply becomes a message. A strange feeling becomes a prediction. The more signals you collect, the harder it becomes to know which ones deserve your trust. This is what I call the signal noise trap. More signals do not always create more clarity. More awareness does not automatically create better decisions. If your inner world is receiving 10 impressions at once, discernment is the process that helps you separate information from interpretation. That difference is essential. A sensation is real because you felt it. Your explanation of that sensation may still be wrong. You can feel tension in your body without knowing its cause. You can feel uneasy around someone without knowing whether the source is wisdom, memory, insecurity, or simple fatigue. If the phrase spiritual weapon feels too dramatic, remove the word spiritual for a moment. The principle remains. Can you stay clear while pressure rises? Can you notice fear without letting fear write the conclusion? Can you receive an impression without forcing it to become certainty before you have enough information? That is the skill we are building. Clarity does not mean you always know. Sometimes clarity sounds like, I do not know yet. Sometimes discernment means waiting. Sometimes the strongest response is refusing to invent an answer just because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. This is how noise borrows the voice of intuition. It arrives quickly. It feels personal. It demands meaning. But a strong feeling is not the same as a clear signal. The weapon is not your ability to feel more. The weapon is your ability to separate what you felt from what you concluded. So here is the first filter. Ask what actually happened, then ask what you added. Keep those two answers separate. That small pause can protect a relationship, a decision, and sometimes an entire season from being shaped by a story that was never tested. If that is the kind of clarity you want, let these words become a marker. Clarity over noise, not as a slogan, as a standard. You do not need every impression to become instruction, and you do not need every emotion to become prophecy. But one question is still open. Why does your clearest mind so often appear when you stop trying? Why do answers arrive in the shower, on a walk, while driving, or just before sleep, then disappear when pressure returns? The answer begins with the way attention changes when you stop forcing it. Chosen one. This is where the pattern becomes practical. You sit down to do something that matters. Maybe it is a proposal, a difficult message, a financial decision, or the first step toward work you have delayed for months. Within minutes, your focus scatters. You feel tired. You reach for distraction. The common explanation is harsh. You call yourself lazy. You tell yourself you lack discipline. You wonder whether the fire you once had is gone. But notice the timing. The resistance often rises when the task carries meaning, uncertainty, or the possibility of change. That timing tells you this is more than a simple character flaw. One part of you wants movement, another part wants safety. One part sees the opportunity, another part remembers every reason it could fail. When those signals compete, attention fragments. Your mind starts searching for relief instead of direction, and the smallest distraction suddenly feels easier than the next meaningful step. This is why your gift can feel absent when you need it most. The gift may not be gone. Access may be unstable. When pressure rises, the mind can shift from clear observation into protection, prediction, and avoidance. You do not become less intelligent in that moment. You become less integrated. That distinction matters because it changes the question. Stop asking, what is wrong with me? Ask, what state am I in right now? Are you calm enough to evaluate what is real? Are you reacting to the task or to what the task represents? Are you trying to solve the next step or your entire future at once? Here is a simple reset. Reduce the number of inputs. Put the extra opinions aside. Stop searching for one more confirmation. Then ask one question. What is the next clear action, not the perfect answer? The mind often regains traction when the demand becomes specific enough to act on. This is the breakthrough. You are not empty. You may be divided. One belief sends you searching for more power, more signs, and more motivation. The other tells you to protect attention, reduce noise, and restore access to the clarity you already possess. Picture a decision you have been carrying for days. In the old pattern, you open 10 tabs, ask 5 people, replay every possibility, and end the night more confused than you began. In the new pattern, you remove the noise, name what is actually known, and choose the next action you can defend with a clear mind. There is another layer beneath this. You were not always this fragmented. There was a time when curiosity could hold your attention without force, when imagination and learning moved together more naturally. Adulthood added pressure, performance, comparison, and constant interruption. So do not ask whether your weapon disappeared. Ask what keeps interrupting your access to it. That question is more useful. It gives you somewhere to look, something to test, and something to change. And soon, we are going to examine a deeper clue. Why do some of your clearest ideas appear when you stop forcing them? Why does the mind sometimes reconnect in quiet moments, then scatter again under pressure? That question leads directly to the part of you that may have been trained out. You were not born thinking in fragments. As a child, curiosity could hold you for an hour without anyone calling it discipline. You could imagine, test, fail, ask again, and move between pictures and ideas without worrying whether every thought looked useful. That does not mean childhood was perfect. It means your attention once moved with less pressure. You were not measuring every idea against productivity, status, comparison, and the fear of being wrong. You could become absorbed because the act itself was enough. Then adulthood taught you to separate everything. Be practical here, be creative there, be careful here, be intuitive there. Perform in one room, suppress yourself in another. Over time, the mind becomes skilled at switching roles, but not always skilled at returning to wholeness. Chosen one, maturity should not require permanent fragmentation. Growing up should not mean losing access to curiosity, imagination, and focused absorption. It should mean learning how to direct those capacities with more responsibility. This is why quiet moments can feel so different. When you walk without checking anything, when you shower, when you drive a familiar road, the pressure to perform drops. The mind stops wrestling every thought into place. Sometimes an answer rises because the noise finally loosens its grip. There is an old spiritual image about becoming like a child again. That does not mean becoming naive. It can mean returning to receptivity, humility, and the willingness to see before deciding what you are supposed to see. And here is where something interesting enters the picture. There is a scientific lens that does not prove spiritual claims, but it can help us think about integration in a more physical way. It comes from research into how different sides of the human brain process and coordinate information. That research eventually became connected to work recognized by a Nobel Prize. Later, other teams began asking a practical question. Could a more integrated pattern of brain activity be supported in a simple daily routine rather than through another demanding practice? I am going to return to that question soon. There is also an 8-minute application connected to this idea, and I will explain exactly what it is when the larger problem is clear enough to judge it fairly. For now, hold one question. What if part of what you have been calling a spiritual blockage is also a receiver problem? Do not answer too quickly. The point is not to reduce your life to biology. The point is to stop separating the spiritual, emotional, and cognitive parts of your experience as if they never influence one another. Before we go there, notice what this changes. If you have spent years calling yourself inconsistent, you may have been judging a state as if it were an identity. A scattered state can be trained. A pressured state can soften. A noisy receiver can become quieter when you change what keeps feeding the noise. Because the next trap is subtle. You can be highly sensitive and still misread what you feel. You can receive a strong impression and still add the wrong meaning. And that is where discernment must become stronger than intensity. Chosen one, sensitivity is not the same as discernment. You can notice more than other people around you and still interpret what you notice through fear, memory, hope, or exhaustion. This is the signal noise trap. You receive a feeling, then the mind rushes to explain it. A delayed message becomes rejection. A strange silence becomes danger. A burst of excitement becomes confirmation. The signal may be real, but the story added to it may not be. So use 3 questions. First, is this signal clear or repetitive? Intuition often arrives simply. Anxiety tends to circle. It repeats the same fear, adds new details, and keeps demanding another round of certainty. Second, does this feeling expand perception or narrow it? A clear signal can make you more attentive to reality. Fear often shrinks the field until you can see only one threatening interpretation, even when other explanations are still possible. Third, does it point toward one responsible action, or does it demand an immediate emotional reaction? Clarity can wait long enough to be tested. Panic usually tells you that everything must be decided right now. This is not a perfect formula. It is a filter. The purpose is not to make you suspicious of yourself. It is to keep every strong sensation from receiving the authority of truth before it has earned that authority. Some of you have been on a spiritual path for years. You have prayed, journaled, meditated, watched signs, and listened for guidance. This message is not asking you to trust intuition more. It is asking you to test intuition better. Mature discernment is not louder belief. It is a cleaner relationship with uncertainty. Sometimes the wisest sentence you can say is, "I feel something, but I do not know what it means yet." Think about a conversation you replayed several times. Each replay produced a different interpretation. First, you were certain the person was angry. Then, you decided they were hiding something. Then you wondered whether you had imagined the entire problem. The event did not keep changing. Your interpretation did. That is the clue. Now we reach the midpoint of this message. The weapon is not sensitivity. The weapon is integration. Your ability to notice is only one part. Your reasoning must examine what you notice. Your values must decide what deserves action. Your behavior must then carry that clarity into the real world. If those parts remain separated, sensitivity becomes another source of noise. This is why more spiritual information can sometimes make a confused person more confused. More input enters the same divided receiver. More signs create more interpretations. More advice creates more competing directions. So mark the shift with a simple statement. I test the signal. You do not reject what you feel. You do not worship it either. You test it. You place it beside reality, and you ask what responsible action remains when emotional intensity settles. But this opens a deeper question. What happens when one part of you knows, another part doubts, and a third part refuses to move? Why can insight remain perfectly clear in your mind while your life stays exactly where it was? That is the divided receiver. And the answer to that question is where the research lens I mentioned earlier becomes useful. Chosen one. We have reached the missing piece. You understand the difference between signal and noise. But one question remains. Why does knowing the right thing still fail to produce movement? Insight alone is not integration. You can understand a pattern and still repeat it. You can see the door and still stand outside it. Sometimes the deeper issue is the condition of the receiver carrying insight into action. Earlier, I told you I would return to a research lens connected to the brain. Now, the problem is clear enough to judge the solution. Here is the why. Your attention, judgment, imagination, and action do not always cooperate. Here is the what. The goal is not to become superhuman, but to support a more integrated state. Here is the who. This matters to the person who already has insight, but struggles to access it under pressure. You do not need a more powerful weapon. You need a more integrated wielder. You already have insight. What you have been missing is reliable access to it. There is a piece of scientific history worth knowing. Dr. Roger Sperry received the Nobel Prize in 1981 for research that helped reveal how the two cerebral hemispheres can specialize and communicate. That work did not prove spirituality, and it did not prove the product I am about to describe, but it gave later researchers and product developers a language for thinking about coordination across the brain. The materials behind one tool use that idea as the foundation for what they call whole brain activation and hemisphere synchronization. Before I name it, consider two experiences reported in the product materials. A woman from California described persistent mental fog and the feeling that life was happening to her. She reported feeling clearer and more emotionally present after using the routine. A man from Texas described carrying work and family responsibility while his mind felt constantly foggy. According to his account, he later experienced stronger clarity and focus. These are personal reports, not guarantees, but they show the kind of problem the tool is designed to address. The product is called the Genius Switch. It is a digital audio track built around what its creators call neural sync technology. The routine takes 8 minutes a day. You use headphones, close your eyes, relax, and listen. According to the product materials, the sequence is designed to support hemisphere synchronization and what the creators describe as whole brain activation. It does not require meditation, mantras, journaling, or another complicated spiritual practice. The Genius Switch is not supernatural power. It is a specific auditory sequence sold around a synchronization concept. This is not for everyone. It is for the chosen one who wants a simple tool to test without pretending the tool is the source of their calling. It is for the person willing to stop treating fog as a moral failure and examine whether cognitive integration can be supported more deliberately. The product materials compare the idea with options that can cost hundreds of dollars per session or thousands for home equipment. Colleagues connected to the offer also used $500 as a value anchor. Those comparisons are pricing context, not proof that the methods are medically equivalent. The listed price is $49. The materials also describe a page offer of $39, though you should confirm the current price on the official page before deciding. 4 digital bonuses are described with the offer. They include a guided visualization, a grocery shopping guide, a classic manifestation book, and a printable guide built around 5 habits. The materials also state lifetime access and a money-back guarantee, so read the exact terms on the official page. A lower price is not a reason by itself to buy. The real question is fit. Does an 8-minute passive routine suit your life? Are you willing to evaluate it without expecting a miracle? If the answer is yes, the resource is in the description and pinned comment. Use the verified page linked there and read the details before you make any decision. Keep this boundary clear. The tool is not the power. It does not replace God. It does not replace judgment. It does not make decisions for you. It does not turn every feeling into truth. What it may offer is a structured way to support the receiver. The deeper work still belongs to you. You still test the signal. You still choose the action. You still need enough humility to change your mind when new evidence appears. That is where we return now. The divided receiver is bigger than any product. Logic without intuition can become sterile. Intuition without evaluation can become impulsive. Insight without action can become fantasy. The next step is learning how to bring those parts back into conversation, so clarity becomes something you can live, rather than something you only feel for a moment. A tool can support clarity. It cannot become your source of authority. It cannot replace God, judgment, sleep, honest reflection, or the responsibility to make your own decisions. The deeper current of this message has always been larger than any resource mentioned before. Chosen one, this is where the divided receiver becomes personal. One part of you can reason clearly, while another part is overwhelmed by emotion. One part can feel a strong inner signal, while another part keeps demanding proof. One part can see the next step, while another part is already imagining every possible failure. Logic without intuition can become sterile. Intuition without evaluation can become impulsive. Insight without action can become fantasy. Action without clarity can become exhaustion. The goal is not to silence one side. The goal is to let each part do its proper work. Here is a simple exercise. Take one decision you have been carrying. Divide it into 2 columns in your mind. In the first column, place only what you know. In the second, place what fear is adding. Keep the 2 separate. Maybe you know the conversation needs to happen. Fear adds that the relationship will end. Maybe you know the project needs one more honest attempt. Fear adds that failure will prove you were never capable. Maybe you know you need rest. Fear adds that slowing down means falling behind forever. The first column is information. The second column is interpretation. Both can feel equally loud, but they do not deserve equal authority. This is the practical work of integration. You let intuition speak, then you let reality answer, and you refuse to let fear impersonate either one. Picture yourself tomorrow morning. The desk is clear. The problem is still real. Nothing magical has removed the responsibility from your hands. But instead of opening 10 tabs and asking 5 people what they think, you write down what is known and choose one responsible next step. That is what clarity looks like in motion. It is rarely dramatic. It is often quiet enough that the old version of you would have overlooked it. Yet one clean decision can change the direction of an entire week, because your energy is no longer leaking into 10 imagined futures. So mark the shift. I act from clarity, not from panic, not from the need to prove that every feeling was a message, not from the pressure to know everything before moving. And for the person who heard the resource described earlier and felt that it may fit their life, the details remain in the description and pinned comment. Read them for yourself. The tool is optional. Your responsibility for clarity is not. There is one final trap we have not confronted. It affects people who love insight most. You can understand every pattern we have named today and still remain exactly where you were, because knowledge can create the feeling of progress before behavior has paid the cost of change. Chosen one, this final breakthrough is uncomfortable because it can hide inside spiritual growth itself. You can consume message after message, save notes, collect signs, recognize every pattern, and still avoid the one action that would make the insight real. The problem is not that knowledge is useless. Knowledge matters. The problem begins when the emotional reward of understanding replaces the cost of movement. You feel the relief of a breakthrough, but your boundaries, habits, and decisions remain untouched. This is the insight-action gap. It is the distance between knowing and doing. It is where people can feel as if they are changing because they are learning, while the same fear and the same postponed decision keep returning. Do not shame yourself for that pattern. See it clearly. Insight is safe because it can happen inside your mind. Action exposes you to consequence. The moment you act, someone may disagree. The plan may fail. The boundary may disappoint someone. That is why endless understanding can become sophisticated avoidance. You are not refusing growth. You are staying near growth without crossing the line where growth becomes visible. So choose one action with a real cost. Send the message you have rewritten 10 times. Put 1 hour on the calendar for the work you keep calling important. Say no where your body has been saying no for months. Do not choose 10 actions, choose one. Integration becomes real when clarity enters behavior. Now imagine a conversation that normally pulls you into reaction. You feel the familiar heat. Your mind starts writing the other person's motives before they finish speaking. This time, you pause. You notice the sensation, but you do not turn it into a verdict. You ask what is known. You separate it from what fear is adding. You choose a response that you can respect tomorrow. The relationship may not change in that moment, but you change inside the relationship. If you are somewhere safe, close your eyes for a moment. Let your jaw loosen, let your shoulders fall. Take one natural breath, without forcing it. Imagine a sword resting in your hand. It is not pointed at another person. It is not there to win an argument. It is there to cut through confusion. See one old story in front of you. Maybe it says you always fail. Maybe it says everyone leaves. Maybe it says you must know everything before beginning. Let the blade move through that story, not through a person. Now ask one question. What remains true when the noise becomes quiet? Do not force an answer. Notice what feels simple after fear and urgency lose their volume. That is your somatic anchor. Relax the jaw, drop the shoulders, return to the question. What is known? What is fear adding? And what is the next responsible action? The resource mentioned earlier remains available through the description and pinned comment for those who want to examine it. There is no need to force a decision, because one sentence still remains. It changes what chosen means in this entire message. And when you hear it, the primary loop we opened at the beginning can finally close. Chosen one, we can close the loop now. The weapon was never the ability to control what surrounds you. It was the ability to remain whole inside it. Your weapon is integrated discernment. It is the ability to notice fear without handing fear the steering wheel. It is the ability to feel deeply without turning every feeling into prophecy. It is the ability to trust intuition without abandoning evidence. This is why the strongest person in the room is not always the loudest. Sometimes it is the person who can say, "I do not know yet." Sometimes it is the person who can feel pressure and still wait long enough to choose a clean response. Chosen does not have to mean more powerful than other people. In this message, it means more responsible with the clarity you have been given. The gift is not an excuse for superiority. It is a call to humility. Not every feeling is a message. Not every coincidence is a sign. Not every thought deserves trust. Discernment includes the courage to question yourself, change your interpretation, and admit when reality gives you new information. So, let this become your declaration. I do not weaponize my sensitivity against others. I use discernment to cut through confusion. I do not confuse fear with guidance. I do not confuse delay with rejection. I allow reason and intuition to work together. I choose clarity before reaction. I choose action after clarity. I reclaim responsibility for my attention. I do not need another identity to become whole. I carry what I have been given with humility. I am not becoming more powerful. I am becoming more integrated. That is the transformation. Not becoming someone who sees hidden meaning everywhere. Becoming someone who can stand in uncertainty without inventing meaning just to feel safe. Not becoming impossible to hurt. Becoming harder to control through fear. If this message describes the way you want to live, leave one sentence as your final marker. My clarity serves what is good. Let that sentence mean responsibility, not status. And if you know someone who has enough insight but still cannot make the decision they have delayed for too long, send this message to them. Sometimes a person does not need another answer. They need a cleaner way to hear what they already know. For anyone who wants to review the resource discussed earlier, the details are still in the description and pinned comment. Read the information carefully and make your own decision. No tool replaces the responsibility you carry. Now return to the first question. What is the weapon no human should have? Taken literally, none of us should have power over another human mind. But, as a metaphor, the answer is different. The weapon is the ability to remain clear without becoming cruel, sensitive without becoming ruled by every signal, and powerful without needing power over anyone else. The weapon was never the ability to control what surrounds you. It was the ability to remain whole inside it.